Welcome to the Catholic Dadcast by Rich Pintang, where we break down all things dad from a Catholic perspective. Now more than ever, we need dads to step up their game. Gentlemen, buckle up and get ready for battle. Brothers and sisters, welcome to the Catholic Dadcast. I am Rich Pintang, your host and founder. And I am just so honored and pleased to bring you today's episode. You know, the season 2 has been, pretty amazing thus far. And, there's so many different topics that I, would love to speak on. And every time I heard about Retrouvaille, it made me realize how important it was to, have some fruitful conversation. And so I'm just really grateful that my guests today were able to free up some time and just be able to share what it's done for them and some of the great things that have happened through Retrouvaille. And we'll talk about what Retrouvaille is and what it does for those married couples that might be struggling with some things. But they're based out of the Retrouvaille of Jacksonville, Florida. And they are what would you consider happy grandparents with 5 grandchildren and son and daughter in their mid-30s, just learning to navigate life themselves. So I just would like to welcome both Steve and Leigh Baumann to the show.
Hi, Rich. We're happy to be with you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Yeah, you bet. And again, I just praise you for your yes, because I think I'm just really excited to just hear, how you can look at this again in somewhat in retrospect, because you've just walked this path, but a path that's brought you some real joy and real clarity. And this episode really is probably for, some of those married couples that just, quite frankly, may have lost a little bit of hope. And I'm sure that the weather in Florida is just like it is in here in Southern California, maybe a little humid on your side of the country.
A little cold.
It depends on what cold means. Don't let this sweater fool you.
We actually live in Georgia, just above the line, but our home Retrouvaille community is Jacksonville. That's where we actually did our weekend. But we're really thrilled to be able to talk to you about Retrouvaille. Some have often said that it's one of the best kept secrets of the Catholic Church, and to me, anything that's building marriages and strengthening families should not be a secret. So anytime we have the opportunity to share with folks our experience and how it's changed really our marriage, how we relate to each other, the longevity. Early in your marriage, you don't see that you're going to be grandparents and want to share that experience together, and how important marriage is and to a strong family. So we're happy to talk with you about that today.
Yeah. Well, honestly, it hadn't been for Retrouvaille, we wouldn't be sharing our grandchildren together, I don't think. So it's made that much for us.
It really has. And I think when you really look at today, one of the things that we think about a lot is marriage is really under attack in a lot of ways. Yes. And there's just lots of challenges to marriage in today's society that weren't there 10 or even 20 years ago. And so Retrouvaille, it really allows couples to start with a retreat weekend where they just step away from their life, and they put everything else on hold and focus on each other for a weekend retreat. It starts Friday night and goes all day Saturday and finishes up with Mass on Sunday afternoon. And that experience, sometimes I'd say it's maybe like emergency room visit for some marriage. For us, it was our challenges in our marriage, I think, built over time. We didn't have an immediate crisis, but we really knew things weren't going down the path that we wanted to go.
Well, I kind of look at it I'm kind of a nuts and bolts kind of guy. So I look at it this way. If you're bringing your car into a mechanic and you just need a little tune up and everything's all well and good. Well, we needed an overhaul. I mean, we needed to break down that engine and find out what was wrong. And that's what Retrouvaille did for us. So yeah, it was more of an overhaul for us for sure.
Yeah. And I would think that it could, Retrouvaille can hit in different areas, right? Because the thing that I'm thinking of was, what I belong to a dad's group that specifically is trying to proactively work on the different aspects of our lives as men, as fathers, and as husbands, and what that means, because there's so many different priorities pulling at us, and a lot of times what gets forgotten is myself and my bride, right? And that's what I believe why this is so crucial to talk about, because for example, as men, a lot of times we just wait until the last minute, until the house is burning, and that's just because maybe we just didn't realize how what path we've gone on. But I think the fact that Retrouvaille allows you to pause life and to focus on each other, right? And to know that in that day and a half, 2 days, that you're going to walk away with so much healing, so much more comfort, so much more clarity, and you guys are be able, you can confidently say that, and that's what I've heard from my friends that have said, that echoed the same sentiments.
Yeah.
And the thing about Retrouvaille is, when the weekend, when you go to the weekend, there are three couples and a priest that present the weekend, and we are, certainly the priest has some professional credentials, but the couples, we're couples just like the couples coming in on that Friday night, and what we're sharing are our personal stories and the journey that we took to sort of come out the other side of that, and those stories are absolutely compelling, and it may not be exactly the situation that you would be experiencing, but it's the issues of trust and forgiveness and dealing with conflict in a marriage are so relatable, and I think one of the things that we teach really is a communication process. And that communication process teaches you to communicate on a feeling level. And that really is the crux of what you're learning on that weekend, is how to communicate more effectively with your spouse.
Yeah. And, for guys, that's a little harder of a pill to swallow. When they tell you when you come on the weekend, and we do it as well, is like, leave all your problems, all your worries, all your concerns right now, just put them in a box and leave them at that door, because right now our focus is to work on you and your spouse and these tools. And when you learn that you're learning to speak on a feeling basis, you're like, oh man, that's not me, that's not how I kind of roll. But and I had a little resistance with it at first. I didn't. I spent 8 years in the Marine Corps, and feelings is not something anybody really cared about.
Thank you
So
for
it was, yeah. But that was, like I said, it was hard for me to come around on that. But as I saw change in her and change in me, and I had a multitude of aha moments. Especially when I'm starting to learn what her feelings were, and even really more so learning my own. That took that was a real eye opener for me.
Your point is well taken, because that you said the C word. Communication for men. It's one thing, because we toss this around a lot. We always say, people have different perspectives on communication. Number one, a lot of us can say that, well, the way I was raised, this is just how we communicate. Like, you have to accept that, which is not necessarily true. The other part is, oh, this is just how men are made up. and you just have to accept that. That's not necessarily true. I think that there's room for improvement, and just like in any marriage, you can find a way to compromise, but the main thing is that communication is very clear, it's empathetic. And communication is not
Yeah.
just what comes from here, but it's shutting this off and giving your spouse the space to share what's happening, and instead of automatically going into confrontation mode. And I'm probably speaking to myself, and with that comment, but what I would say is,
Yeah.
the whole point is communication is something that needs to be worked on, and such a huge part of what, just like God the Father communicates with us in different ways, so much more for yourself and a spouse. And that's a great point.
Right. Right.
And I
Right.
think when we begin to communicate and we understand each other's feelings, then our hearts soften.
Absolutely.
And so when hearts are softened, it then becomes a whole lot easier to deal with conflict. And it's really managing conflict, because in every marriage, we all have what we call the same fight on a different day. And when you really look at these constant conflicts, you've got to figure a way to manage these. And we were speaking with a couple the other day, and culturally, we all bring our own experiences with our family of origins, what we've seen, how our parents negotiated their married life, which could have been very effective and pleasant, or conversely, not effective communicators. And then of course our own personality styles, and there's so much we bring to the table, sort of the baggage, if you will. And so as you begin to negotiate the challenges of marriage, it really takes effective communication for a successful marriage. And so I think for us, we laugh and we say, our marriage didn't come with an instruction book. And and so Retrouvaille was a lesson I wish we'd been able to do much earlier in our marriage.
Well, just to back up on that a little bit, even if it did come with an instruction book, I'm a guy, I probably wouldn't have read it. So that's one part of it. But Leigh hit something a while ago. When communicating to each other, especially on a feeling level, it does soften your heart, and it brings about a lot more empathy and sympathy. And you also learn that she is not my enemy, or he is not my enemy. They're not. We just have a difference of opinion, or different of ideas. And a lot of times, even those ideas are the same, but we're just going about it the wrong way, and it's created an argument. And really, at the end of it, we were trying to accomplish the same mission, but we were just going at it from different viewpoints. And sometimes there's an argument there when there really even shouldn't have been an argument. So it's the tools that I learned, I use not just in with Leigh, but I use them with my kids, my grandkids, my coworkers. I use them with everybody. It's made a world of difference in my life. And it's not just even the tools that Retrouvaille gave, but it's also, you bring in God more into your marriage and into your life. Retrouvaille really brought me closer to our Lord.
Amen.
I've seen a lot of miracles in Retrouvaille, and that's even just empowered me even more, not just on our own weekend.
And I think for me, it's it really gives you the opportunity, life, to just sort of step back and look at yourself. What about me do I need to work on? What are some of my rough edges? Because inadvertently, we end up pushing our spouse's buttons, when we don't even mean to. And so there's things about ourselves that we want to improve. Certainly communication in the marriage, but also really just looking like what are our values. And as a couple, we've spent a lot of time at our dining room table scratching our heads and trying to figure out our finances. But how often do you sit at your dining room table and think, what do we really want out of our marriage? marriage? What is important to us? And so I think that weekend really sort of helps you put that into focus. And I guess a little values clarification is what really begins to happen. And like you said, once you start a family, the focus tends to be on that. And for us, I think we really worked together every day in business. So it wasn't like we were apart a lot. We spent a lot of time together as business partners and as parents. And when our kids left the home and went off to college, and we found ourselves to be empty nesters. Television always portrays that as a big party. Oh, the kids are out of the house, or either the parents are just bereft that the children are gone. And so for us, I think what we began to see happen is this division. And whereas our attention had been focused on our children and our business, we began to sort of diverge and take a path of living what we'd call a married singles lifestyle. And it happens so much, and we think, okay, it's not so bad if Steve likes to shoot skeet, and I like to do this, and it's just when it becomes the norm rather than, an extracurricular that you're living a married singles lifestyle. And it's very prevalent.
Yeah. There's so many different things that divide you in your marriage. And a lot of it it really just creeps in there. You don't even see it happening. You think, oh, I'm going to go play golf with the boys, or I'm going to go shoot some sporting clay, or I'm going hunting. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go to the race with the friends. And, I'm going out with the girls. I'm doing this. And what you end up seeing is that you start developing a life that's not with your spouse. It's with your buddies and your own interests and your own things. And then you lose that connection. And it happens. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens over a period of time.
Yeah.
And you don't even know it's happening.
Sometimes it can look like workaholism even.
Yes.
I mean, you think, okay, I'm, putting in some extra hours, or, trying to get ahead in my job or career. It can look like hobbies, as Steve was saying. It can conversely look like, an over-involved parent, where the focus is on, the kids solely and not back to the marriage. So that married singles lifestyle, it sort of innocently begun, but for us, we sort of realized, if you're taking a separate vacation and going here with friends and we're doing this, then we're just getting further and further apart. And so that was sort of the wake up call to us that we really need something that helps us to refocus, and we're not parents, we're husband and wife, and we're still parents, but we also we have to be strong to lead our family as a couple, and that was a really important wake up call for us.
And not every family runs through a scenario of where they start separating apart purposely. There is a lot of reasons that folks have turmoil in their marriage. With today's society, and especially cell phones. There we go.
Yep,
there we go.
Yep.
Cell phones. You have a laptop at your fingertips, and you're able to go on social media. That causes a lot of issues. You're able to get pornography. You're able to do a multitude of different things right there at your fingers. And that's just,
and even your work is now available 24/7.
Yeah. I mean,
you're never out of touch with your job either. So
you look how we go to a restaurant, and we do it all the time. We'll notice folks that they're sitting right across from each other. Instead of talking, they're on their phones, and you don't know what they're looking at. But if they're on social media talking to somebody else, they're not talking to their spouse. If they're doing this, they're not talking to their spouse. So, I mean, that has become and I'd say in the last 15 years or so, it's a real challenge now.
It's become
for marriages.
It's become acceptable, and I think that's why I'm a very big component of looking at and recognizing that as well. And there's so much
Mhm.
with what you're sharing is awareness, becoming aware that
Right.
these are things that are can be healthy, but it detracts away from our role as a husband and wife, and as
Yep.
the leaders of our family unit. And I think that that's why I'm starting to question, because what I'm noticing is there are some certain things that you might have recognized thinking back to, because you were integrating a business, and there's so many other things. But what does it mean to be a husband? What does it mean to be um, your wife, for example? And when I looked at the website, for those that you guys don't know, the website is helpourmarriage.org,
Mhm.
and there's tons of resources on there. But I'd really love to see what you guys remember about um, balancing that, and some of the warning signs that maybe you now see, now that you are where you are today.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I think one of the things that we really look at, and sometimes they're just symptoms of a marriage, and the first is apathy. And I think that's the point that you get to where your own personal interest become a priority over that of the marriage. And apathy can look like a whole lot of things. And sometimes it's just a matter of I'm interested in other things, and it's a matter of maybe I'm dealing with depression and I have to prioritize my mental health. Maybe I'm dealing with a chronic illness and I have to prioritize my physical health. We also have affairs that bring a lot of couples to Retrouvaille, and to me that's just a symptom of there's something else in the marriage that needs looking at. A lot of couples, end up coming to
Addictions.
Retrouvaille because of anger issues, dealing with addictions. Maybe one spouse is in recovery. We're seeing a lot of couples that are working to overcome pornography addiction, and as well as gambling, online gaming, and then of course alcohol, and we know the opioid crisis in this country is just tremendous. And so all of these things really end up putting a lot of stress on a marriage. And they're things that as a couple it takes both of you to work on, and to really come together and say, hey, we've got some challenges, and what can we do to work on these and to better communicate.
And we have a lot of folks that come to Retrouvaille. They're not necessarily in that 100% crisis mode. A lot of times they catch it. They saw that there's a sign that there's definitely something going on, that they're not as close as they used to be for whatever reason.
Praise God.
And they don't share their stories with us or anything. We don't ask them to. I mean, what you have is your business. What we're doing is we're three couples that are up there that have lived through the misery, and the tools that we learned through Retrouvaille, we tell you how we use those tools and our story on how we brought it back together. And so that's what you hear, but we don't ask them what their business. Now, a lot of times they'll say, can we speak with you? Because your story resonated exactly what's going on with us.
Yes.
I don't know how many times we've had a husband and wife come in and says, well, she'll say to me, well, I am you and he is her. And we would like to talk to you. And, we'll sit there
We're
and
happy to share that.
we'll share what we did.
And I would like to say, Steve, I thank you for saying that, because I can imagine there are a lot of men or a lot of couples that might hear this and say, well, I don't want to air my dirty laundry. But I think
Right.
the whole point of engaging in Retrouvaille is to allow yourself to have that time, to have that clarity, and start to heal from these things, because there are so many different facets. But when you look
Right.
at all those different symptoms that you see prevalent in society, I can't help but think that a strong marriage and a strong family unit can combat that, no matter how many other resources you can
Absolutely.
throw at it. And
Yeah.
statistically speaking, we know that's really it. And again, I think I'm talking more
Yeah.
about the root cause of some of these behaviors and addictions, which are taking away from my bride and myself and my children. Because everyone has a great heart when they want to take care of their children, but at the same time, we have to look at ourselves and and who we are as a couple also. And sometimes that gets put on the last priority, when in reality, it's so crucial for husband and wife to lead by example, to show what true love is, to see the beauty of a healthy relationship and the family unit. And I think that's why my big devotion is to the Holy Family, because what greater model is there than to see that, a courageous man, taking care of two of the most important people in our history. But again, Steve, I appreciate you saying that, because a lot of times, I can see where people are hesitant to want to engage in this, but the reality is, you invest, a day and a half, 2 days worth of your time, and how much weight is pulled off your shoulders. I'm sure you guys felt that way also, when you went through.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
And one thing I do want to say is just the format of the weekend is this, and it's sort of guided exercises that you go through. You'll hear a presentation by one of the couples and the priest, and then you have sort of guided exercises that you work through with the privacy of just you and your spouse. And with the format of that, you're able to go back to your room, and we're typically in a hotel or either a retreat center, and to share privately in your room, and then you'll come back, hear another presentation by another set of couples, on a different topic, and these guided exercises, there's no group therapy, there's no group sharing, all of your challenges and whatever conflicts you may be working through, you work through together, just with your spouse. And I think that's a unique thing, because I think there's a real concern with folks, even a resistance of getting help from a marriage counselor. And one of the things we statistically know is that most couples will live in misery, absolute misery, for 6 years. 6 years before they seek any type of help for their marriage. And that's a long time. And I think there's just
very painful.
Absolutely.
There's been a big wall built by this point in time.
And
there's been a big wall between them.
People feel they're alone, because you don't want to say, to your friends, you don't want to say to your family, that,
or even your priest,
or even your priest, that your marriage is in trouble. There's just a real sense of us, in all of us, to sort of hold that close to the vest. And so I think couples often feel very alone in not knowing where to reach out, because, we laughingly say, your spouse can forgive you for just about anything, but your in-laws may never. But or your best friend, but I think it really is. It's a sense of isolation that couples feel when they get into this place of misery. And Retrouvaille, the symbol for Retrouvaille, if you have been to the website, is a cross, and behind it is a life ring. And truly, it's a real lifeline that is thrown to couples, and I think it's and you notice it's behind the cross, so you have to go through the cross of Jesus to reach that lifeline, and I think that for us, it was a life-changing weekend. And so after the weekend, we also offer post-weekend sessions, and I think that's a really integral part of the program, because there are 12 talks that happen after you've attended your weekend. And so it's sort of like we're feeding you knowledge through a fire hose on the weekend, all the information we can give to you. But these post sessions really give us the opportunity to sort of dig a little deeper. You'll look at things like your personality style and how that relates to your spouse, the positive and negatives of how you relate to each other. And do you want to cover some of the other post session?
Well, I was going to back up a second though. I wanted to mention one thing about the weekend that was really life changing for me. It was more of, I wasn't listening to a psychologist or anything like that. I was listening to guys that were just like me. They were just ordinary men, and they were showing me how they went through this process, and they were showing me how they came out the other end, and then hearing their stories. I wasn't hearing something out of a textbook. I was hearing something that actually happened to them. So that made a big, huge difference for me on the weekend, to see I was getting this from this guy. Could have been a mechanic in a shop, retired Navy, could have 100 things. They were just different folks, and they were people just like me. And so that gave a lot of credential for me. For anyways, I don't want to mention that before I forgot about it.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was that it taught me to put God as my steering wheel in my life instead of my spare tire. Instead of just calling on him when I need him in an emergency, let him drive that vehicle. And that was a big aha moment for me in my weekend. So anyway, I just wanted to say that before we got going on some of the
But
stuff.
no, when you talk about the personal testimony of folks on the weekend, and then also the influence of the priest. We have a priest is in full-time attendance on the weekend, and you know, the thing about it is, when you really take a look in the mirror, you know, a hard look in the mirror at yourself and at your relationship, I think sometimes just being able to let go of some of the baggage that you're carrying is extremely liberating. And we see folks on weekends maybe that haven't been to confession in many years, that have stepped away from the church, and conversely may not even have a strong relationship in their faith. And so that is just as much part of the journey of the weekend, is really sort of looking at yourself, looking at your relationship, but also looking at your relationship with God. And the priests that present on Retrouvaille weekends are absolutely extraordinary, and they share their journey of priesthood, and sort of the romance that we talk about in marriage, and their romance with that, the disillusionment that we see in marriage. They share the parallels of disillusionment that they sometimes have in their journey, and even misery, and what that looks like. And as you have this journey that you've seen different folks walk through, and then the final phase, which we call an awakening or a rediscovery of each other, and is miraculous to see, because you see that journey that the priests share their experience through that as well, through their vocation. And it is a faith sharing that is, I think, causes folks really to have a real closeness and a deeper relationship with the church, because it's just such an open and welcoming space to be able to share that with the priest on the weekend as well. So I think it's a unique group dynamic that ends up happening with the sharing that happens on the weekend.
Yeah, what I was thinking was the fact that you know, when you use the words life changing, it makes me think that when they return, you know, when people leave, they typically will say, I'm glad I did, I'm glad I went. And that's just the beginning. You know, you can kind of stop looking at the rearview mirror and start looking at the windshield, and realizing how much more opportunity you have to grow as a couple, and your relationship with God, right? And
Yes.
I do recall seeing the 4 stages of marriage. So those of you that are intrigued by which phase or what stage of marriage you're in, you can actually go to the website helpourmarriage.org and see where you stand. And there's other resources, and there's others things you can take to see where you stand. And I think by far you're going to see that there's a reason why there's a lifeline, on the cross, on the Retrouvaille logo. And I mean, I'm so inspired by your journey, your courage, and to just know that how many marriages you may have saved, and what Retrouvaille does in general, the mission. And I want to say that as we start to kind of wrap up the interview, just really maybe either some words of encouragement, or anything that you might be able to share with some of the men that might be listening, or families, just advice that you could offer.
I'd say for me is, in your heart, if you are giving 100% to your marriage, that you can look in the mirror, look in your eyes, and say, am I doing everything I can do to make my marriage work? That's as simple as it gets. And if you can't answer that and say, no, I'm not putting 100%, I'm not really trying, I'm just going through day to day so I don't have to argue, or just
going along to get along.
Going along to get along. That's exactly
Yeah.
right. You know what? Go to the website, do a weekend. If nothing else, you will learn to communicate, not just with your spouse, but your mom, anybody in your family, anybody that you work with. I mean, you don't use the exact tools, but you know how it kind of works now. So, I use it all the time with people. And, I'm not afraid of not being a man's man. I've been down that road. I mean, I hunt, I fish, I work on stuff, I do all kind of things. I am who I am, and I'm so much more. I'm so happy now that I have a relationship with my spouse that I can be open and honest, and we have trust. And not every marriage has that. And if you look in that mirror and you say, do I really have all these things, or does these things that I want, but I feel like I can't ask for it, then you know what? Go to the website and do a weekend close to you, or even fly somewhere else and do it. And it makes a difference. It made such a difference in my life. I can't even tell you. And to be a presenter, because, excuse me, because it has done so much for me, I wanted to give back what was given to me. And when I stood up there on that weekend, and I get a little choked up on this, but I sit up there on that weekend and I see these couples who are standing this far apart from each other, that don't want to have anything to do with each other. And not all couples are that way. Some just have have small issues. Some have big issues. Pain is pain. It doesn't matter where it's coming from. It's still pain. But when you see a couple that's far apart, and then by the end of the weekend, they're holding hands,
like
or they're
this.
close together.
Like
He's got
this.
his hand on her knee or something, or arm around him. You see that transformation. They had a major breakthrough. Something that was causing them to be separated, they figured out what it was. And it's just, man, you talk about feeling good inside. You go back and you praise God for letting him use you as a vehicle to do that, and to more miraculously is to see it. And that's what Retrouvaille is all about, man. And there's a lot of people that have a strong passion. They see what it did for them, and they want to give back. And man, having a happy marriage. If it hadn't been for Retrouvaille, I wouldn't be enjoying my grandchildren and a lot of the things that I enjoy today. I really wouldn't. So I owe it to that.
And so we do encourage folks to go to the website. A lot of folks think, well, is it just for newlyweds, or is it for people that have been married for a long time? We have couples that have been married for 6 months to 50 years
Or more.
Or more that come on a weekend. And there's stressors that happen to us all the time. The loss of a child, just going through financial challenges, or a job loss, or a move, living apart. All of those things put stress on marriages. And Retrouvaille really gives you the tools to communicate. It also helps you address some of these unresolved conflicts that you have, and rebuild trust trust, intimacy, and forgiveness, which are, all real key components. So
Yeah, absolutely.
And those are
All right.
those are all just great things for a lot of listeners and viewers to recognize that it may not be you, it may not be someone close to you, but if you forward this episode to someone, you just might find that maybe these couples are exemplifying some of those warning signs, and they can recognize just by reading an article or two, or maybe taking a book from what you've recommended from the website. And
Absolutely.
those are the things I think that matter, because
Yeah.
it's funny because we're recording this on the just before the Valentine's Day holiday, but this could be a gift that keeps on giving, whether it's for an anniversary or it's for a birthday, or it's just something that you feel like needs to be done at this specific time of your marriage. I would love nothing more than to get anonymous testimonies later on in life saying, after I listened to this, it really planted the seed that I needed to allow myself to put my pride down and to take action towards something that's going to help us. And that's the biggest thing, is allowing yourself to be vulnerable enough to say, I don't have this thing figured out. I never got a PDF on how to be a married
Right.
couple, or anything like that. If it's out
Yeah.
there, I don't know, you still got to execute on it. But I think the whole
That's
point
right.
is there are
That's
couples
right.
like you that can honestly say, this saved our marriage. And I'm glad that when we saw it, or we were introduced to it, that we decided to do this together. And now you can confidently say that you have such a healthy relationship moving forward on how to communicate and all the different aspects that can compete against a happy marriage. And so I honor and I praise you guys for your sharing today, and what you guys do. And I'll make sure that we continue to pray for you all. And
Thank you.
if you any final thoughts before we wrap up here?
No, I just really encourage folks to realize that we all have the power to really create a marriage of our dreams, and it's something that we wouldn't give anything in the world. We stay continually involved in this ministry because of the continued support Retrouvaille does after you've finished your weekend and follow-up sessions. Does a monthly support group called CORE, which is continuing our Retrouvaille experience. And there are 150 communities worldwide. Retrouvaille is presented in multiple languages all over the world. And just about most major cities that you go to, there's going to be a Retrouvaille support group there. So even after the weekend and after your follow-up sessions, it's that ongoing support that has really just made a difference, because it's an accountability, and it's folks that have gone through something that you've gone through, maybe not the exact same thing, but that are really focused on working on marriage, and that group of folks holds you accountable and really keeps you on the right track. And so the combination of that, I think, has really just made such a huge difference in our marriage and our lives. And we thank you for letting us share it with others.
Such a great point, Leigh.
Yeah.
Such a great point.
I
Low,
think the only thing
risk,
I'd
high
say is
reward.
that I most of my friends now are all Retrouvaille. And it's mostly because I don't have to have any kind of persona. I am who I am. I'm not judged by them. They all know my story because when they've been on our weekends or whatnot, and we've done weekends in other cities and so forth. When something comes up and they need somebody to do a presentation, but they're just it's a great organization, and I just love being part of it, and I'm glad that the Lord blessed me with it. So
All right.
Well, we'll continue to pray for you all for what you do. And I thoroughly enjoyed the sharing, and I
excuse me.
I have a great deal of respect for the mission of Retrouvaille, and can't wait to see what kind of fruits come from this episode and how it's shared throughout. So God bless you guys. And folks, this is the end of the podcast episode. Go in peace to love and serve the Lord. Thanks be to God.
Amen.
Thank you so much, Rich.
Thanks, Rich.